Hello, Internet, and happy Thanksgiving week to all of you. Um, with Thanksgiving coming this week, I've been thinking a lot about gratitude and just priorities, values. Maybe we all are, or a lot of us are during this time of the year. And actually, I think it's healthy all the time to be focused on the things to be grateful for, focusing on blessings and just the things every single day to be thankful for. And so obviously this is the week officially where we are encouraged to do that, but I have to say it's something that I've been in the habit of doing on a regular basis in my life anyway, even before I got cancer. I remember when I lived in India, I would go for long walks up in the mountains. My house, the place that I lived, was like right at the very top of my town. And all I had to do was go out the door and just point myself upward, because the entire town was below me. And I would go out my door, and as soon as I turned right, I was in the forest with the monkeys and with unbelievably beautiful mountain views of the Dauladhar Range, which is one of the outermost ranges of the Himalayas of North India. And oh man, do I miss that. I miss it so much. I spent, something like 17 years in that environment, in that atmosphere, up until the winter, January, early February of 2020. And a lot of you already know that story, but that's when I locked my door to come home thinking I would be back here in the States for 6 weeks. And it has turned into 3.75 of a year, almost 4 years. Wow. It's just, sometimes I'm just blown away by that fact, and blown away by how much my life has changed. There's always different ways of looking at life and looking at circumstances and the things that happen to you. There's a negative side where you can look at yourself as a victim, or woe is me, or I'm so unfortunate. And yeah, there is that side. And on a bad day, I will sort of review what's happened since early 2000, and I'll think, man, I really got screwed. I really got the short end of the stick, because I left my home, and North India was my home for a very long time. I left my home thinking I was coming back for a short period of time to see my family, which of course I love to do, but I fully expected, it did not even enter my mind that I would not be returning. And yet I've never been able to return. I left with a bag, a few t-shirts, a couple pairs of pants, a couple pairs of shoes, and I left all of my earthly possessions there, and I've never seen them again. And of course, as soon as COVID was winding down and the global travel restrictions were being lifted, and especially with India, things were kind of going back to normal, where they were getting back to previous visa rules, and they weren't doing random COVID testing and requiring this and that. At that time, I was very close to booking a ticket back to the US, and that was around September, October of last year, 2022. And those of you who've been following along, you know exactly what happened at that time. That is when I started to feel ill. I started to lose weight. I knew I was sick, and we couldn't figure out what it was. It took, about 6 weeks to arrive at the diagnosis, which is actually quite fast. A lot of people struggle with these things for a lot longer. But anyway, the point is, just when I was getting ready to return to my life in North India, I got this diagnosis of stage 4 colon cancer. And immediately started into chemotherapy. And again, I won't repeat the story. For you guys who might be new stumbling into this video, you can go back and take a look. But the point is, you know, if I look at things from a strictly human, logistical side, I've had a terrible 4 years since we moved into the 2020s. I've lost my home. I've lost all of my possessions that I had lived with for many years in North India. And I've lost my health. And I will be dealing with stage 4 cancer for the rest of my life. Even though, as I am right now, I'm in a period of relative peace and quiet in terms of cancer, I know what a stage 4 diagnosis means. And I know that I will have to be vigilant for the rest of my time on this earth. So, again, from that point of view, it's like, oh man, this sucks big time. I lost my home and I lost my health. And I can't go back to the life that I used to have. But back to the theme. I am so grateful that I rarely spend time in that mental, emotional, spiritual space. I spend so much more time in the other, looking at things from the other perspective, which is entirely different and so much brighter. There's so many things that I could list off that I'm so grateful for. Number one, just coming back and COVID hitting, I have had more time with my family than I have my entire adult life. I've got to spend time with my parents, extended time with my parents. I have been able to spend time with my brother, both my brothers and their families, much more time than I used to be able to when I would come in just for holidays or for a little while in the summer. So I have been a part of their lives, and they have been a part of my life during these last 3.5+ years. And that is a tremendous blessing. The other thing is that this is a long story, but I got hooked up with health insurance that has been superb to handle my illness. And if I had been in India and started to experience these symptoms, first of all, I wouldn't have wanted to deal with it in India. Secondly, I would have come back to the United States and I would not have prepared the health insurance situation that I did have time to prepare it before I got sick. So it was there waiting for me because I had come back during COVID and I knew I was going to be here for an extended period of time, and I changed my whole health insurance situation, and it has been a literal godsend. The way that I have not had to worry about finances, I have not had to worry about insurance, and I have had health insurance coverage to take care of things, and it's been very expensive, as you might imagine. So I am just unbelievably grateful for that. Plus, I'm just so grateful that I have sort of rediscovered Minnesota. Again, I hadn't lived here since I was in school 35, 40 years ago. So I have rediscovered my state where all of my close family members live. Parks, state parks, national parks. Before I got sick, I was doing so much camping and hiking and exploring of beautiful northern Minnesota. It was just fantastic. And even since I've felt better starting this summer, I've been getting myself out again. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And I realize that there's just as many treasures right here in my backyard, right here in good old Minnesota, than there are in other places in the world that I've spent a lot of time in. Himalayan North India, Nepal, the beaches of Thailand, Hawaii. You know, I lived on the big island of Hawaii many years ago for about 5 years. And so sometimes I am absolutely overwhelmed with thankfulness and gratitude for this life. And even the way I see that things have worked out during this extremely difficult few years. And it's overwhelming to me. And that outweighs the strictly, like I said, logical, empirical, human perspective of what I have lost. So I wanted to share that with you guys. Maybe somebody needs to hear it. Maybe some of you can relate to that. But also just because I think that life is better when we train ourselves, we discipline ourselves to think of things from that perspective, more of an eternal perspective, more of a big picture perspective. You know, another thing I'll close this video with, I've thought of this a lot in the last year. Before I ever had any clue that I was going to be battling cancer and that I was going to be looking at the potential end of my life in a very tangible way, before that ever happened, numerous times when I was alone, when I was hiking or camping or spending time in solitude in nature, I would think to myself, Ken, if you died tomorrow, you have had an unbelievably awesome life. And that's true. I used to think that all the time before I ever got sick. I thought if I died tomorrow, I could say that I had an incredible life. And I won't even list all the things, but from my career before I ran off to other parts of the world, family, friends. I haven't even mentioned being grateful for friends, but let me throw that in there too. Being back here for these few years, I have reconnected with a handful of lifelong, precious, close friends that I had not been in very close contact with during all those years or even decades overseas. And I can put that right in there with some of the greatest blessings. So there you have it. I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and I encourage you to take a look. You know, we all have problems. We do. We all have stresses and anxieties and frustrations. Sometimes they're overwhelming, I know. But I just want to encourage you this week, and then even after this week, don't let it just be a Thanksgiving thing. I encourage you to try as hard as you can to look at life through the lens of blessing, and you might be surprised what you discover or realize. Anyway, thanks a lot. See you next time. Bye-bye.